What's up, everyone? Welcome on in to the Sports Forum radio show here on 98.1 FM Mile High Sports Radio. I'm your host, Riggs Tamburo, kicking it off with a guest right off the bat today, Mr. Kurt Holobaugh, TUF 31 contestant over there on Team Chandler. Man, so happy to have you on. How's your Tuesday going?
Going good, man. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure. It's going good. Just showed up to the gym, getting ready for another day of training.
Yeah, absolutely, man. The grind never stops. Well, hey, look, I want to talk to you about this whole TUF 31 journey. Take me back to the initial phone call that you get asking you to come. Obviously, you've been through the ringer. You were considered a vet on the show. So getting that phone call, what did it feel like to you?
It was cool. My manager hit me up one day and he said, hey, what's your email? And I'm like, all right, well, I shot him my email. He's like, all right, there's a Ultimate Fighter Season 31 application. Go fill it out. I already got your interview on Tuesday. And I'm like, okay, just throw it on me, why don't you? So, I went through all the processes, filled out the application, done the interview, and, one of the selected ones.
One of the selected ones, and I'm sure you're glad you were selected. I'm glad you were selected. I've been loving watching you so far on the show. But you open up the show for your episode last week. For those that haven't seen it yet or haven't even started the TUF series yet, you need to get on the train and go start watching. This guy right here, he just fought last week, and it's a good one. But no spoilers right now. Look, you open up the show, you're sitting at a table with Roosevelt Roberts, one of your teammates there on Team Chandler, and you specifically said, look, man, I've been in this game for a very long time. The worst things have already happened to me. What do you mean by that, and what does that kind of do for you motivation-wise?
So just what I said, the worst things have already happened. I've already been to the UFC. I've already lost. I've already got submitted. I've already got TKO'd. I've already got released. So what's the worst that could happen? I'm back again. I've already went through, all the worst that could happen. So, there's no pressure here. I'm back. I'm getting a third chance. And I'm getting this third chance when I never, ever thought that I would get a third chance. Most guys that get released after their first time, sometimes they can work their way back. But a third chance, I honestly don't know if it's ever been done. I'm sure it has, but it's definitely not easy. So, the worst things already happened. No pressure on my shoulders. I was just there to have fun.
How much easier is it, in your opinion, for being a vet who, as you just said, you've been through it all, you've done it, your ups and your downs have been the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, most likely. Compare that to when you were a rookie, when you first get that very first call to go in the UFC. What's the mindset difference? Is it a confidence thing? What is it? What makes it easier?
Yeah, definitely a confidence thing. I mean, when you fight in the UFC, you already get that feeling. You already know what to expect versus, whenever I first stepped up and fought my first UFC, it was almost like I'm still watching it on TV. It's like it almost wasn't real to me. It's like you go from not ever thinking you're going to fight into the UFC. You're never going to get that call because, for me, I was such a big fan of the sport. I watched every single card on pay-per-view, on free fight night, and just for me to be there, it was just hard for me to take myself out of that fan and put it into the actual fighter.
Yeah, you just said a minute ago, you've been in this game a long time. You've been up and down 3 times now, getting 3 different chances. Your professional debut was 2012. Obviously, I'm not going to run the whole thing down here, but you get a call to join, you take the call, you go in there, you take some stuff on short notice, doesn't go your way. You get another call, you do it again, doesn't go your way again. And now you're back here. Let me just ask you, why have you not hung it up at this point?
I think it's just, I love the competition. I love to compete, and I still feel like I can compete at that high level. And that was one of my main risks, taking this Ultimate Fighter chance because, it's been about 2 years since I had fought. And I'm like, man, what if I can't perform at the level that I was performing? So, but I still feel like I can perform. And, and I was trying to venture out. I was trying to get a spot with PFL or Bellator. And actually, I had signed with Khabib Nurmagomedov's new promotion, Eagle, which was paying like UFC money. I was making as much in Eagle as I was making in the UFC. So I'm like, why not? I never got to make my debut before the promotion kind of just stopped. So, and then I got that call for the Ultimate Fighter. But man, I'm a competitor. You know, even when it's time for me to hang it up, I'll probably hang up fighting, but I'll probably compete jiu-jitsu until the day I literally can't walk.
Yep. And I know that you got some gyms of your own, correct, that you train at. So even when fighting's over, you're still planning to coach and teach young guys like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I have 2 gyms of my own under my coach's franchise, Rafael Elwanger, who's a black belt under Carlos Gracie Jr. And, he forced me about 8 years ago to open my first gym. So I did. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I actually bought one of his gyms that, he was just ready to get out from under. And I bought that gym, and I've grown both gyms really well. I have a lot of amateur fighters, pro fighters, and a ton of kids and adults that compete in jiu-jitsu. So whether I'm training for a fight or not, I'm in the gym at least 5 days a week, and I'm just training nonstop with these guys. It's very rare for me to teach a class and not train with my students.
And I know that you talked about, at least in the show, you talk about how important family is to you. Obviously, you had the little ones running around. I thought the pizza thing was pretty funny, but if you know, folks. But I mean, how does all of that play into the fighting? Obviously, you just talked about the money with maybe Habib's promotion and stuff like that, and taking the risks. Obviously, the money is always a thing in every job that there is in the world. But how's your family helped you to stay motivated and stay behind you, obviously, through these ups and downs? I mean, has that been a very big support system for you to say, hey, you know what? You love to do this. Keep doing this.
Yeah, for sure. They're just a lot of motivation. And I think the difference was, we have 5 kids all together, and my oldest kid is 15. My youngest is 3.5. So I just think the difference from whenever I was fighting in the UFC the first couple of times is they were still young. And now I feel like they're teenagers now, so they know a lot more of what's going on. I'm bringing them to the fights. They got to go to some of my fights for the first time a few years ago and actually watch me fight live. Yep. And with my wife being a competitor in jiu-jitsu as well, it's just the motivation and of all of us training together. Even when I am training for a fight, I got all of them there helping me. We're there every day together. It just means a lot, and it's huge for me.
Well, hey, man, let's jump in and talk about this fight last week that you had on the show. Obviously, you draw that man, Lee Hammond from Team McGregor, called himself a well-rounded fighter, more of a jiu-jitsu practitioner, someone that fights smart, doesn't make big mistakes, everything like that. How do you feel about drawing Lee for your very first fight, obviously knowing that he was Conor's ranked #1 guy?
So I knew that he had a lot of hype coming in, because a lot of the guys you hear a few guys that were selected to be on TUF say that they was kicked off for Conor McGregor's guys, but it was only Lee Hammond. It was only one guy. And sometimes it's kind of hard for me to believe that they were kicked off for Lee, because I feel like when Conor first signs to be a coach, probably the first thing he said was, yeah, you doing this weight class? I have my guy, Lee Hammond. I want him on the show if I'm going to coach. And I'm sure the UFC said, okay, no problem. I'm sure he flew down there with Conor when Conor arrived in Vegas. So a lot of talk was about that. And for me to draw that fight, I knew it was going to be a lot of eyes on that fight, and I knew it was going to be a huge fight. And come on, if Conor's going to bring his guy and put a guy on the show, he's going to be good.
Yep. Yeah, he's going to be good. So, I mean, I guess for you, it was one of those things that was like, hey, you know what? I don't want to say you got nothing to lose, because obviously you did have everything to lose at the end of the day. But you basically are going in there saying, hey, give me the toughest draw in the competition. Once I beat this guy, hopefully it's some smooth sailing from this point forward. So let's talk about this fight, though. Very first 3 seconds of the fight, looked like you went to throw a kick. He went to kind of throw an overhand. He got kind of caught up. You end up on your back in that one position there, obviously knowing he's a jiu-jitsu guy. What's going through your mind at that point once you're on the ground? Are you comfortable there?
I'm always comfortable on the ground, but that's maybe one of my downfalls in mixed martial arts too, because it's not good to be on bottom. Yeah, if you're a jiu-jitsu guy and you're competing in jiu-jitsu, be on bottom. You can't get smashed in the face. But at the same time, in an MMA fight, it's not very good to be on bottom. So I didn't want to be on bottom. And actually, when I threw that kick, he stepped into my kick and checked my kick, and that's when I gashed his knee open. I don't know if you've seen any photos about the gash. That very first kick that he checked and kind of caught my leg and put me down, cut his knee. And, you know, just from there, I was actually, as soon as he put me down, I got to feel how big and strong he really was. And I'm like, yep, this is I'm going to have a problem right now. I'm going to have to really weather this storm and hope that I really gas this guy down, because I know he made a tough weight cut. But when he was on top of me, man, I can tell you, I've been in there with some very good guys, good wrestlers, Pat Healy, Thiago Moises, Andre Harrison. Man, he felt just as good as any one of those guys.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, Dana White said right before you guys touch gloves, Dana White said, man, he's a big boy right there. He's a big guy for the division. And I agree with you. You could definitely tell how big he was in there. But then about the 3-minute mark of the first round, you reverse it. And then all of a sudden you end up on top, and then boom, he reverses it back and you're back on the bottom again. I got to assume at this point you're frustrated. What's going through your mind? Obviously, knowing you only get 2 rounds in this fight to get it done. I mean, obviously Chandler's screaming, you know, got to get up, got to move, got to get up. But obviously, like, you know, as a fan of UFC, I sit at home and I say, hey, come on, get up, right? But clearly that's much harder than it probably sounds like it is to do. So, I mean, what's going through your mind at this point about halfway through the first round?
Yeah, you know, it's a lot easier said than done, because you can't just stand up there. There's very technical ways you need to stand up. And like you said, I reversed a few times, and I thought that I had a good top position, but I don't know if he was just that big and strong, or if I just didn't settle down enough. I maybe should have settled a little bit more, because I was just like, I call it go mode, where I just don't stop. I'm going forward and just not really thinking about some of the things that I'm doing. But, you know, as I'm on the bottom, you know, and I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, well, the first round's slipping away. He's going to get this round. And, you know, and I'm hoping he's getting good and tired, because, you know, I know I'm losing the round, but I also know it's a 2-round fight, and I really, really need to come out and get this second round.
What did Chandler say to you after the first round? I mean, obviously knowing that you were down 1 at that point.
Just basically telling me, forget like anything. Like, don't worry about nothing except for trying to get to my feet. Don't worry about submission. Don't worry about punching. I just need to get to my feet, you know, throw everything out the window and work to get up.
And then obviously going into the second round, he comes out. I'm sure it was frustrating. Once again, he attempted to take you down and put you into a submission, but you got out. You snuck out a couple different times from his submission. So obviously, even though he's a strong dude, you know, you were able to slip. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, about the 2-minute mark, you reverse it around. You get him into position. I saw that, you know, he made the comment like, oh, you know, I made one small mistake. Kurt's an experienced veteran guy. He saw it. He took it. What was that thing that you saw, obviously leading to you getting the submission, getting the tap, and getting the win?
So like you said, you know, Chandler and Bader and Strout was yelling, you know, nonstop, you know, try to get a 2-on-1, which means I try to hold both of my hands on one of his hands and work my way up. And you can kind of see that's what I'm doing. I kind of get a 2-on-1. I finally come up. And I think a lot of it plays a part of, you know, how tired he was, because he knew I was about to get back up, and maybe, you know, he figured he was going to go to his back and just kind of hold me in a guard to ride the fight out. But he actually went for like a foot lock, and I tried to step over. And when I did, I felt his head come right on my hip, and I was just able to reach back and hit him with a really slick guillotine.
Chandler screaming, squeeze, squeeze. It was awesome watching that on TV, man. I was yelling the same thing. So no, that was awesome, man. Good for you. Congratulations on getting a win and obviously advancing there to the semis. I got to ask you though, what is it like with Michael Chandler, him as a coach, him as a person? Obviously we saw a little bit more so far in the show of Connor kind of hanging out at the house with the fighters. We haven't seen Mike doing as much hanging out, but we have seen him clearly say, look, I'm there for my guys. I'm at all the weigh-ins. I'm trying to do things the right way. Connor kind of takes this energetic approach to coaching, and Chandler seems like a very calm guy. I mean, overall, what's your thoughts on Michael Chandler?
Oh man, you know, Michael Chandler is one of the best guys that I've ever met. Really good guy, means everything he says. And like he says, man, look, he came to the house every day when we were cutting weight. He was making sure he was right there, whether a guy was in an Epsom salt bath, whether we was in a sauna, whether we was just already made weight, chilling on the couch. You know, he was there for us every single time.
What was the TUF House like overall, living with that many guys? Obviously, half of those guys knowing that you might end up punching them in the face. What's that like? Is it fun or is it kind of hostile?
Man, you know, I think it was more fun for me, you know. Really cool experience. Yeah, you're going to fight if you're winning, you're going to fight a couple of the guys in the house. But at the same time, you can kind of see, a lot of the guys still talk to each other. Me and Lee, we didn't really talk a lot before the fight. He was like the only guy that I didn't talk to. But, you had multiple opponents kind of talking to each other still a little bit, Everybody was super respectful, even though those guys were prospects and guys that never fought in the UFC. A lot of those guys were a lot older, too. A lot of those guys were in their, mid-30s as well, and just, never fought in the UFC but been fighting professionally for a long time. So everybody was real mature, real professional, and which I think that plays a lot in how it turned out in the house, and it was an awesome time.
Glad to hear, man. Yeah, it seems like they got you guys with a pretty nice setup there. It seemed like everything was pretty cordial, but at the end of the day, from the outside looking in, we never know if there's a bunch of back end stuff going on in the house or anything. So that's really good to hear that everybody, is friendly in the house. But all right, man, I know you're at a training session, getting ready to get out of here and go do that, but do you have any shout outs? I know there's a new show going live here tonight. Anything you want to throw out there?
Yeah, man, tonight's show is going to be awesome. We got our guy, Jason Knight, taking on Landon Canonius. If Jason can pull off the win tonight, that's going to put an all Team Chandler lightweight semifinal. So that means we're going to have to fight each other. So, if you're interested in that, definitely keep watching the show so you see how these matchups get made if we got to fight each other. So, thanks for having me on, and, hope everybody's enjoying the show.
Shout out to Jason Knight, man. Best of luck to him tonight. I know Connor's going to lose his mind tonight if that's what happens, because Team Chandler right now undefeated. But guys, please give Kurt Holobaugh a follow at k.holobaugh on socials. Kurt, wishing you the best, man. Thanks so much for some of your time.